Gillian Triggs has been caught out again. The Human Rights Commission President has been tangled up by her own spin. She's told a Senate committee today she cannot discuss that bungled racism complaint against the 3 uni students because of confidentiality. Only problem is, she spoke about it with Lee Sales on the ABC. That's right. She spoke about it on the ABC 7:30 program and then had the hide to say to the Senate committee today, oh no, I can't talk about it because of privacy, because of confidentiality. She's got a bad habit of shooting herself in the foot, and she's done it again. Under questioning by the Senate committee, Gillian Triggs played the confidentiality card on that controversial case from Queensland, but the Liberal Senator James Paterson pointed out she'd already spoken about the details on national TV.
You were asked by Lee Sales why you didn't dismiss the case. You said it had a level of substance. The complaints were ones that attracted a certain measure of concern about the nature of the comments that were made. You went on in some detail to comment on the case, and why aren't you willing to do it today?
I can only repeat that I cannot discuss the details of the case.
Why did you do so on the 7:30 report then?
It was not my intention to do so.
Why did you not tell Lee Sales then that it wasn't appropriate for you to do so?
If you, with respect, if you look at the transcript, you'll see I specifically began that interview by saying I cannot comment on the details of this case.
And then you went on to do so?
No, not in my view.
Well, you did. You did. And I've got the transcript in front of me. Senator James Paterson did very well there. He's right. Gillian Triggs may have said at the start of a chat with Lee Sales that she was restricted in what she could say, but then she went on to make a whole range of comments. I've got the transcript in front of me, and she goes into, I'm not going to bore you, she spoke about it so much that it'd take me 2 minutes to read all of the comments she made about that specific case, but then she sits there in the Senate committee today saying, oh no, I'm not going to talk about it because of confidentiality. And when James Paterson pulled her up on that, she said, oh, well, it wasn't my intention to do so. It wasn't my intention to do so when I was talking to Lee Sales. Well, intention and outcome are sometimes two different things, Ms. Triggs. And as a lawyer, you should know that. It was good enough to go into detail on the ABC, but not good enough to explain to a Senate committee and therefore the Parliament. The Parliament is there representing the people. And Gillian Triggs must think that she's above any review. I've said it before, the Human Rights Commission President is from another planet. She doesn't give a stuff about the human rights of those university students who are falsely accused of racism. Remember, these kids were banned from a section of a university because of the colour of their skin. Let me say that again, and I hope it sinks in. They were banned from a section of a university because of the colour of their skin. And when they politely protested, they were branded racists. Gillian Triggs is the problem here. But of course, she's blaming everyone else.
The information that the public has is so distorted and so one-sided that it's very, very difficult for the public or politicians and parliamentarians to get a fair assessment.
One-sided? Well, Professor Triggs, how about you put up or shut up? If you've got evidence that these kids did anything wrong, share it with us. But we know that the human rights boss says whatever it takes to cover her own backside. She was called to the Legal and Constitutional Affairs Senate Committee after she gave incorrect evidence at a hearing in October. She incorrectly accused journalists at the Saturday paper of taking her out of context, publishing inaccurate quotes. But then, oh no, a tape turned up of the interview. And she had, in fact, said that some of these Aussie politicians were seriously ill-informed and uneducated, even though she was denying the comments when asked. So she then agreed later on, oh, okay, I did say it, but only because the tape turned up. So what did she have to say about that today?
Those comments were made in frustration at the failure to read our reports and to read our statutes, and I've expressed my apology and regret for for the way in which that was produced.
As I said, if the tape didn't turn up, she wouldn't have admitted that she was wrong. She's also shed some light today about how she found out that the government would not renew her term as the human rights boss. You may recall Malcolm Turnbull broke that news on this radio program, that Gillian Triggs' term as the boss of the Human Rights Commission would not be renewed. And it looks like Malcolm Turnbull told us the news before anyone in the government told Professor Triggs.
How did you find out about the government decision to not reappoint you?
I certainly wasn't consulted,
Were you consulted
about it. No, there's the answer to that.
So how did you find out? You read about it? You got media calls?
Yes.
So which one? The media called you first, or you read about it first?
I think I read about it first.
And you weren't given a phone call?
No.
You weren't given a letter?
No.
Have you had any correspondence from the Minister or the Department apart from what's been in the media?
No.
That's Gillian Triggs being quizzed by Shanghai Sam Dastiari. Professor Triggs did point out, however, that the Attorney-General George Brandis knew more than a year ago that she did not want to continue as the human rights boss when her term finished next July. The most embarrassing thing today, though, was Gillian Triggs saying, I can't talk about the case in Queensland because of confidentiality, when the Liberal Senator James Paterson pointed out you spoke about it at length on national TV. James Paterson is on the line. Senator, good afternoon.
Thank you for having me, Ben.
How embarrassing.
It is, and it's a concerning pattern of behaviour from Gillian Triggs, as you've pointed out. I don't think she takes her obligations before the Parliament to be accountable to the people who pay her salary, that is taxpayers, sufficiently seriously.
I'm going through the transcript here of her interview with Lee Sales. She said things like, this was a difficult case because the parties took different points of view. There were a number of students that had said different things in the issues in relation to each of them was different. There was complaints not only about the university but the university staff. It was quite a long matter. Some students had gone away on holidays. They were difficult to connect and so on, so that's why it took much longer. That's just one answer, and I've highlighted 4 or 5 other answers during that interview where she spoke about this case from Queensland.
That's exactly right, Ben. And one I really wanted to question her on today was that comment about students being away on holidays being the reason for the delay, because I don't think the evidence and the facts supports that statement. She has made a statement on the public record about this, and I think it needs to be examined in detail. And I suspect the facts show that she's not correct in saying that it had nothing to do with the students being on holidays and everything to do with how the Commission was handling the case. But she's been unwilling to answer questions on that, and that's very troubling. This is a publicly funded organisation that handles complaints and conducts conciliations on behalf of taxpayers, and they are unwilling to answer basic questions about how they do so.
Now, she's now being tested and challenged to answer these questions this afternoon before the Senate committee. I'm told that she is now claiming public interest immunity. What the hell does that mean?
So she hasn't yet claimed it, but she has done what's called taking a question on notice and foreshadowed that she may claim public interest immunity. So for your listeners, that doesn't make a lot of sense. That's weird Senate language. But the important thing here is that any witness before a parliamentary committee is obliged to answer questions, except in a very narrow range of circumstances. And that is when they claim that it would affect the public interest for them to answer those questions. That's what's called the public interest immunity. Now, one of those is potentially that it could affect the outcomes of a court case, but it is very narrow. It can't just be any court case. It has to be able to be demonstrated that answering those questions would have an actual effect on the case. And I don't think that the evidence would support that. I think there is no public interest to be claimed here, but we will now have to wait for Gillian Triggs to go and seek advice on that and to inform us about whether she's willing to answer the questions.
So she's sidestepping the questions being asked by the Senate committee on behalf of the people of Australia.
Absolutely. She's refused to answer multiple questions that I asked today, and then eventually said that she would have to take on notice whether or not she was able to make a public interest immunity claim.
When will we find out the answer to all of that?
Well, how long is a piece of string, Ben? That is the frustrating thing. We just have to wait until the Commission comes back to us, and the timeline is more or less in their hands as when they do that. I hope it's sooner rather than later, because this committee will call the Human Rights Commission again, and we will ask these questions again until we get an answer. These are concerning matters that the public wants answers to, and the Commission can't evade that forever.
Well done. You blitzed that today. Congratulations.
Thank you, Ben.
James Paterson, the Liberal Senator who was asking those questions of Gillian Triggs. I don't know whether it's just because she's the Human Rights Commission President that people feel like we need to wrap her in cotton wool while we analyse this. If this was a footy player, people would be jumping all over him saying, hang on a moment. He's claiming when he's before the judiciary that he can't discuss these matters, but he went on the footy show and spoke about them at length. Everyone would be ridiculing them. It's disgraceful, it's deceitful, and it's downright dodgy. And Gillian Triggs should just face up, go into the Senate committee and answer the questions. And I don't get her strategy here. She's got no respect for the politicians asking the questions, because when you think about it, she could just give the answers that she gave to Lee Sales, and then she wouldn't be making news. But because she's put on the big Jonathan Thurston sidestep, she is the news once again, and she deserves to be.